Okay, we are down by the Garryowen post office. Fort A is back this way past where Garryowen is. It's a little shop and museum now. Reno crossed the Little Bighorn River back there, reformed his men, and they came around these trees and they got out into this flat open valley of the Little Bighorn. The tree line that you see in the distance, that is the Little Bighorn River. The valley in front here, Little Bighorn Valley. And if we keep panning our way up to the north, way up there in the distance, that's where the Indian village started. It's about a mile or so away. Reno and his troops crossed the river, watered their horses, reformed, and moved in a group down this valley. They got to this point. Company M was on the left flank, Company A was on the right, Company G was behind in reserve, and the Indian scouts with Varnum and Hare were on the extreme left, basically where I am now. If I pan around here, you can see what all the noise is about. We got the frontage road, and we have the bench land up top here. This is where the pony herd was, and that's Route I-90 up there too, so there's probably trucks and stuff coming by. It's gonna make some noise. The Indian scouts, as the attack was going on, as the soldiers were moving down this way, the Indian scouts moved up the bench land here to capture the ponies. So those 35 guys are gone. Reno extends the line by moving M and A, moves M over this way, moves A back toward the trees a little bit. He takes G out of the reserve spot and moves them all the way to the end on the right flank of the trees. So what's going on here is all three companies are now in charge formation. You have M on the left flank here, A is in the middle, and G is all the way over by the trees here. They charge down toward the village. They get about, I don't know, a mile down. The village is right there. It's caught completely by surprise. But Reno has very little experience in fighting Indians. In fact, he's never fought them before. So he's going to make a tactical error, and he decides to form a skirmish line instead of charging into the valley, or into the village there. Forming a skirmish line reduces your firing power 25%, because 1 out of every 4 guys has got to hold the horses of the 3 men that are on this skirmish line. So that's what ended up happening. All the men dismounted, except for the horse holders. The horse holders grabbed the horses and moved them into the trees that you see in front of me here to hide them from the Indians. And the men spread out in a long skirmish line here on foot and started to fire into the southern end of the Indian village here, which was the Hunkpapa Circle. That's Sitting Bull's tribe. And they ended up tearing apart the bottom of the village here, the southern part of the village. Chief Gall lost 2 of his wives and 3 of his kids in the fire. And there were several other Indian casualties. One of them was Two Bear, who was standing at the just outside his teepee. He was shot and killed. At this point, the Indians, which were surprised at first, become enraged, and they know what's going on, so they come out to start to challenge Reno, and Reno starts to get some resistance here. At this point, Reno's still looking around. Remember, he had sent 2 messengers, McAlarkey and Mitchell, back toward Custer, and he's expecting Custer to, you know, be true to his word and reinforce Reno with the entire command. Well, Reno's looking behind him here, because he would be up a mile or so. He's looking back this way, and he doesn't see Custer or any of his troops. He doesn't know where this reinforcement is coming from. He's expecting it from the rear, but it's not going to come from the rear. Because when you're facing Indians, the last thing you do is attack from one direction. If you do, the enemy will look for the opening and scatter. So what Custer had done is he had actually moved up on the ridge. And over the trees, you see the ridge there. Custer was actually up there, and he was able to look down and see Reno for the first time on the skirmish line. And he took off his hat and he waved it to him, apparently, and then he and the group disappeared behind the bluffs. They left. So Reno wasn't sure exactly what he was doing up there or where he was going. Anyway, he's taking fire, and he starts to get reports that there might be Indians infiltrating getting into the timber there where the led horses are, the held horses. And the Indians want to capture the horses or deny the soldiers' mobility, so they're going to try to kill the horse holders and get the horses. So Reno decides to take Company G off the skirmish line. So the whole company with Reno goes into the timber to see what the heck is going on in there. So Reno, instead of leaving the highest ranking company commander in command, which would have been Thomas French of Company M, he leaves his adjutant, 2nd Lieutenant Benjamin Hubert Hodgson, in command of the line to just make sure everything is good. Meanwhile, the Indians are still coming out of the village. They're starting to infiltrate around the left flank, and they're hanging around the timber, and there's some firing going on. Reno's lost a couple guys so far. Finally, Captain Miles Moylan of Company A, he hears about the Indians maybe taking horses, so he takes half of Company A, and he sends them into the timber as well. He leaves 1st Lieutenant Charles DeRudio in command of the other platoon of Company A. So now half of the whole skirmish line is in the timber with the held horses. And the Indians see this, and they continue to infiltrate, and there's less soldiers to keep them at bay, keep them back, so they're actually succeeding in dislodging the skirmish line a little bit. Company A, the platoon that's still on the skirmish line, finally just leaves. Apparently, Charles DeRudio, the commander of that platoon, said that there was no order given. They just walked off into the woods too, and that left Company M with Thomas French all alone out here. Well, French is taking some heat from the Indians to his left flank, so he wheels his entire company into the trees as well. So now all of the companies are in the trees, and this begins the second part of the Reno Valley fight. Instead of the skirmish line, now we're dealing with the timber fight, which happened all in this area in front of me. All the men were in there. The Indians now were in mass. There was probably about 900 to 1,000 warriors around this area, and Reno, remember, he had about 140 when he started the attack. The 35 Arikara and Re-Scouts have disappeared because they're up on the bench land, so he doesn't have them anymore. And he's lost a couple guys on the skirmish line and some more wounded, but for the most part, he's still outnumbered by, you know, maybe 9 to 1 odds, 8 to 1 odds. But he's stable in the timber. The Indians are trying to get in, but they can't get them, and they can't get the soldiers out of there, and they're still close enough to the Indian village, which is up there, that they're a threat to it. So the warriors aren't going anywhere at this point. And they're trying to set the grass on fire and the timber on fire to see if they can get the soldiers out of there, but the grass is really green and wet, so it won't do anything. It just smokes. And now all of a sudden you have a lot of smoke on the battlefield, you know, adding into where you have the rifle fire and stuff like that, and the carbine fire, which adds more smoke. And it's really hiding the soldiers well. At this point, the Indians don't know what to do. They can't do anything. But they're not the one that makes the mistake. Reno is. He makes a tactical error. He's standing in the timber. There's some firing going on. Indians are trying to get in. And he's standing next to a scout, one of the scouts, an Arikara named Bloody Knife. And it's Custer's favorite scout. And he's asking Bloody Knife exactly what to do and what does he think that the Indians are going to do. And before Bloody Knife can answer him, a bullet hits Bloody Knife in the head, and all this blood and brains fly all over Reno's face, and he loses his grip on the battle. At this point, Reno is unnerved, and he orders his men to mount, then dismount, then mount again, then dismount, then mount again. Really contradictory orders. People are jumping up and down off of horses. Nobody knows exactly what's going on. And finally, Reno says, "Those of you who wish to make their escape, follow me." And he just leaves. He doesn't set up any advance guard or rear guard or flankers, and he just bolts out of the woods. Now, the Indians couldn't get the troops out of there, and it could have been a long fight, but instead Reno gives them a gift, and he comes out of the woods. Now they see all these soldiers fleeing out, and there's no advance guard, flankers, anything like that, no rear guard. So they get on their ponies and they follow the soldiers. The soldiers come out of this timber here, and they come back the way they came. They go through this timber here, and there's another field beyond this where they flee. And as they're fleeing, a lot of men lose their horses, so they can't leave the timber, or they have to run on foot. And a lot of other people didn't hear the order, and they are left behind. So there's a lot of people still in this area. Most of the soldiers get out on horseback and start retreating this way. Indians follow them, start killing them all, and because of this disorganized retreat, Reno loses 33 men in 5 minutes as he's retreating toward the river. He's trying to get to the river, cross it, and get up to the bluffs that you see above you here. But since he doesn't do any tactical, stable skirmish situation or any rear guard or anything like that, he loses 33 men really quick. Another 15 to 20 others are left in the timber. Among them are the scout Billy Jackson, the civilian interpreter and scout George Herendeen, and you also have Charles DeRudio, the first lieutenant, the executive officer of Company A. He's left in the woods as well as several other soldiers and other scouts. At this point, some of the losses on the skirmish line, or as the soldiers run out of the timber, some of the losses are Charles Alexander Reynolds. He was killed. He's an interpreter. He was killed. One of the first ones killed out of the timber. Isaiah Dorman was also killed. He was the Dakota Scout interpreter. He was the only black man with the regiment. And also the first lieutenant and commander of Company G, Donald McIntosh. He was shot and killed as he was trying to get away, as were many others. Private William Moody and Sergeant Edward Botzer, Sergeant Miles F. O'Hara. There's a lot of guys were killed when they shouldn't have been. If it would have been a stable situation, that many losses would not have occurred. So now we will shift gears and move up to the Reno-Benteen defense site area and show the battlefield there and show you what the valley looks like from that direction.